back, everyone. Today's video is going to be on trigger control. We're going to concentrate on pistols for this, but generally most of what I'm going to say is going to apply for rifles as well. But anyway, one of the biggest mistakes I see when you're teaching new shooters is just terrible trigger control. There's several reasons for it. One of them is that they're afraid of the recoil, so they start anticipating and start jerking the trigger. They start pushing down to counteract it with their trigger finger, things like that. There's many other reasons that people have poor trigger control, but we're going to try to get into that today and show you how I recommend doing it, and perhaps what right looks like, at least in my opinion. One thing to remember though, when you're going to go ahead and put your rounds on target and you see your sights and they're lined up on that target and you pull the trigger and the bullet doesn't hit the target, it's not because the gun randomly shot left. It's going to shoot where you put it. What happened is your trigger control got messed up somewhere in there. We all do it. You guys who have watched the channel before know I miss just as much as everybody else out there. But basically we're going to get into the basics here and try to show you how it's done. Alright, first thing we want to cover here is placement of your finger on the trigger. So let me see if I can angle this so I can see it. Okay. With your classic grip high up on the frame, if you guys are new to this channel and haven't seen my video on grip, I recommend you check that out. I'll put a link right here in the video for you. But basically, take your pistol. Most people will recommend that you use the pad of your hand, so i.e. right here in your finger, pad of your finger, excuse me, as the where you want to actually place your finger on that trigger. I recommend that as well. That said, there are pro shooters that use the knuckle or the joint, and they're pro shooters, and I'm not, so who am I to say? But if you're new to it, that is what I recommend, and the reason is going to be next. What you're going to want to try to do when you're pulling that trigger is you're going to want to press straight to the rear. You don't want to jerk it, you want it to be smooth, and you're going to press straight to the rear. And what that's going to do in terms of your placement of your finger on that trigger, when it's in that position in the middle of your finger, it's going to allow you to pull it straight to the rear. Whereas for most people, if they're putting their little knuckle right there, or joint I should say, in there, they may have a tendency to push the barrel left as they're coming across. So that's why I recommend that, number one. Alright, so we've got our placement on the trigger. What you want to do, like I just said, is focus on straight to the rear. All the way through that break and follow through. What I mean by follow through is, you'll see a lot of people, new shooters in particular, they'll take their finger on the trigger and they'll jerk it like that. And they'll let off. Because under recoil, the gun's going to move and they're going to go. And the next time they engage the trigger, it's like that. So you have to take all that slop up. So what I mean by follow through is you want to hold it to the rear as you press that trigger. So you're going to go ahead, press to the rear, hold, the gun will recoil, cycle, and you're going to let off until you feel the reset. So you're going to let off, and there's the reset right there. That's where you want to be for your next shot. You don't want to let all the way off it, because if you do, then you have to put more pressure on that trigger as you're pulling it next time, which just is going to put more force on the gun, and it's just going to increase your chance of error. And it's also going to take up valuable time too. So again, you're going to press straight to the rear, gun's going to cycle, let out till you feel that reset, and then you're going to align your targets, your sights on target again, and you're going to do the same thing, press straight to the rear. But as you're going to see, that travel of the trigger is shorter because you stopped at your reset point. So those are kind of the basics there. And what it's going to look like in practice is something like this. We'll go live here, show you what I mean. Alright, so when you're firing, most of you guys, if you haven't seen them, again, my stance video, I have a stance video too. I'll put a link in here for you guys. So you got your good stance, you're up on target, your finger's up on the frame, you know you want to engage that target. You come down to the trigger, take that slack up, which we showed earlier, which is where we're at now. Double check, make sure your front sight is where you want it to be. You're going to press to the rear, and you're going to hold. You can see right now I am holding that trigger to the rear. I have not let it go. I am maintaining that follow through for the gun. So what I'm going to do again is line my sights up. So as soon as my sights are where I want them to be, I let off. I don't know if you heard it, but I felt it, the reset of that trigger, and I'm going to start that press again. And that's what it looks like in real time. You come off the target, finger comes off the trigger, and you start the cycle again. Like I said earlier, that's generally going to apply for rifles as well. There's some other tricks and tricks of the trade, if you will, for rifles, but basically, if you do that, you'll have a good starting point. One day we'll probably get into the rifles as well. But basically that is your proper trigger press, proper follow through, proper reset technique. Again, some people may choose not to use it. There are some 3-gun competitors out there that like to teach prepping the trigger. I'm not trying to get into that. It's a little bit more complex than what most shooters are looking for. I'm just trying to get into the basics for most shooters of what they're looking for to help them shoot better. And that's what this video is about. We're not talking about winning 3-gun competitions here. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, like always, feel free to let me know. Ask your questions here. You can also ask them over at my Facebook page. But thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And we'll see you guys in the next video.